What is going on, guys? Evan Preco here. You are watching the SG1 Sports Big Ten football channel. In this video, we are going to recap the Big Ten games that took place over Week 10. So what happened on Saturday? To start things off, we've got number 14 Michigan at Maryland. And the final score of this game, Michigan blew out Maryland 38-7. And for the Wolverines, Shea Patterson went 13 of 22 for 151 yards, a touchdown pass, no interceptions. Hassan Haskins was their leading rusher. He had 13 carries for 60 yards, averaging 4.5 yards a carry and a touchdown. Zach Charbonnet rushed for 2 touchdowns as well. Nico Collins was their leading receiver. He had only 2 receptions for 65 yards, averaging 32.5 yards a catch, no score. Michigan ran the ball for 155 yards, and they had 331 total yards of offense. For the Terps, Josh Jackson got his first start ever since coming back from injury, so his first start in a few weeks. He did not play that well. He went 9 of 20 for only 97 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Anthony McFarland Jr. was their leading rusher. He had 14 carries for 60 yards, averaging 4.3 yards a carry, no score. Brian Cobbs was their leading receiver. He had 4 receptions for 52 yards, averaging 13 yards a catch, no score. Maryland only ran for 129 yards, and they had only 233 total yards of offense, and they had a turnover. Their one score came on a kick return touchdown, so it was their special teams that ended up scoring their only points of the game instead of their offense. And to recap what happened, this was all Michigan right from the start. Michigan returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and then their running game exploded with Zach Charbonnet scoring 2 straight touchdown runs, and the score would be 21-0 Michigan going into halftime. To come out of the half, Michigan would score again from a touchdown pass to Nick Eubanks from Patterson with about 5 minutes left in the third to make it 28-0, and they would score one more time in the third with a Hassan Haskins 14-yard touchdown run to make it 35-0. And then, like I mentioned, Maryland would take the ensuing kickoff back for a touchdown, and in the fourth quarter, Quinn Nordin would add on a field goal, and the final score would be 38-7. Michigan's offense is rolling. They've gotten a lot better. Now, they haven't played these big, tough defenses. I mean, Penn State has a pretty good defense, and they did score 21 points against them with the running game playing very well. And that's the thing about Michigan. I think they figured it out because of the change in the way they call plays. At the beginning of the season, you saw they wanted to do a lot with Shea Patterson throwing and running the ball, and he struggled. He could not put the entire offense on his shoulders. It just wasn't balancing for him. So they've really kind of focused on the running game, and that's kind of been their bread and butter, and it's worked. Their 1-2 punch with Hassan Haskins and Zach Charbonnet. They're both very talented running backs. They're both becoming, some of the better running backs in the Big Ten, which is a conference full of talented running backs. And, they're doing a lot for Michigan's offense, and Michigan is scoring points with that happening. So I think that if they want to have a chance at all at beating Ohio State, you stick to the running game. Ohio State has a great run defense. We saw what they did to Jonathan Taylor, but they also, Michigan does have talented receivers. So I guess what they can do is just keep focusing on a run-first offense, and then for the Ohio State game, if that's what they're expecting, then see if Patterson can, answer and make some good throws against a very talented defense that the Buckeyes have. But yeah, no, this is a very good win for Michigan. They now move up to 7-2 on the season, and I think it's their third straight win since the Penn State game. No, excuse me, it's their second straight win since the Penn State game, but last time they destroyed Notre Dame. And next week they're going to have the in-state rivalry against Michigan State, and with the way Michigan State's offense has been playing, Michigan's defense should play very well in that game. It'll be interesting to see how Michigan's offense plays against a pretty talented Michigan State defense. So we'll see how that works out. And then after that, they have to play Indiana on the road, and Indiana's looking kind of dangerous right now. So we'll see what happens with that. And then, of course, you got the game at the end of the year against the Buckeyes. So good win for Michigan. As far as Maryland, it's just another tough loss. They've obviously fallen apart here in this season, and they're just flat out, they're not playing well. Ever since they beat Rutgers, they've lost 4 straight now, and all of them being pretty much blowouts. Like, they lost to Purdue 40-14. They lost to Indiana 34-28. That wasn't a blowout. That's a 6-point loss. Okay, that's a pretty close game. They got blown out by Minnesota last week, and now they get blown out by Michigan. And it doesn't get any easier for them. They have to play at Ohio State next week, and then in 2 weeks from that, they have to play in East Lansing against the Spartans. So there's just no chance for Maryland, in my opinion, here to bounce back and try and make some noise at the end of the season and possibly make a bowl game. They'd have to win out, and I just do not see that happening. So it's tough. It's tough for them. You really feel it for them because of the way they started the season, and there was a lot of praise and people thinking, "Oh, Maryland's going to be a dangerous team this year," and that just flat out is not the case right now. So it's a tough loss for them. I don't expect them to really make any more noise during the end of the season, especially because they're playing really good teams now in the end of the season, and they couldn't beat mediocre teams. So we'll see what happens with them. But good win for Michigan. We'll see how they end up closing out the season. Next up, we've got Nebraska at Purdue, and the final score of this game, Purdue won 31-27. And for the Boilermakers, Jack Plummer started again. He went 25 of 34 for 242 yards, 2 touchdown passes, but 2 interceptions, and he also suffered an ankle injury late in the fourth quarter. King Doru had 15 carries for 71 yards. He was their leading rusher. He had 4.7 yards per carry and a touchdown run. And Bryson Hopkins was their leading receiver. He had 8 receptions for 97 yards, averaging just over 12 yards a catch, no score. Purdue ran the ball for only 145 yards, but they did have 449 total yards of offense. They did turn the ball over twice, however. For Nebraska, Adrian Martinez got his first start ever since the Northwestern game because of the knee injury. He went 22 of 39 for 247 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. He was their leading rusher as well. He had 12 carries for 58 yards, averaging just under 5 yards a carry, and 2 touchdown runs. Wan'Dale Robinson had 14 carries for 29 yards, averaging 2.1 yards per carry, no score, so he was the next man after their quarterback, who had the most rushing yards. J.D. Spielman was their leading receiver. He had 6 receptions for 123 yards, averaging 20.5 yards a catch and no score. They ran the ball for only 128 rushing yards, but they did have 375 total yards of offense, and they did turn the ball over on the interception. So this is a bad loss for Nebraska. I'm going to be very frank about that. It does not look good. The offense, they looked good at the start, but over the period of the game, they really struggled to move the ball. They did. And it's very disappointing because, you look at all the talent that this team has and what their expectations were going into the season. They were predicted by the Big Ten to win the West, and they started the season ranked number 24th. And they seem to be, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment in the conference. And we made a video about that we posted on this channel. I highly recommend you all go check it out, especially if you're a Cornhuskers fan. But they have just not exceeded expectations at all. People thought this would be a 9-3, possibly 10-win team, and right now they're sitting at 4-5, and they're 2-4 in conference play. And they just lost to a 2-6 Purdue team that has suffered so many injuries. So it's very interesting. Adrian Martinez, he obviously did not play that well. Rushing wise, he did fine. He looked pretty natural running the ball, which is something that we saw a lot last year. But throwing-wise, he just did not look that good. He made bad reads. He missed open receivers on bad throws. And I'll cut him just a little bit of slack for that because he did miss the last 2 games due to injury. So he hadn't played in almost a month. But he has to play much better, especially if Nebraska wants to make a bowl game, because here's what they've got ahead. They have a bye week this weekend, but then they have to play Wisconsin, and we know what that defense does. And after that, they play at Maryland, and then after that, they play Iowa. So they have to play 2 very talented defenses in their last 3 games. And I'm telling you, throwing for 250 yards, no scores, and a pick is not going to win you either of those games. And they need to win 2 of their last 3 games if they want to make a bowl game, which is something that they haven't been to since 2016. So they need to really kind of step it up. Defensively, they struggled. They gave up 450 yards of offense. Their run defense played well, but they just couldn't answer the bell, especially late in the game when Nebraska scored with about 4 minutes left. You need that defense to make just one stop to win the game, and they'd let Purdue under a third-string running back drive right down the field and take the lead with a minute to go. And then when Nebraska's offense came back on the field, I the way they handled that situation, in my opinion, was horribly, especially with the fourth down play. You have a timeout in your pocket, you might as well use it there because here's the thing: it's fourth down, and you need to go over what play you're running because this is the game right here. And what they did was they ran the hurry up. They ran like 15 seconds off the clock when there was like only 50 seconds left, and they just did not look ready for that at all. Wan'Dale Robinson, their best player on offense, in my opinion, was not even on the field. So the way they handled that situation was just horrible, in my opinion. Um, so it'll be very interesting to see how they do versus Wisconsin and Iowa. I think that they can beat Maryland, but I don't know about the other two games. Um, but yeah, it's just very disappointing to see an offense or a team that had so much potential and so much excitement going into the year to just completely disappoint um, right away from the get go. For Purdue, you know what? I like the response. This really shows how good of a coach Jeff Brom is. You know, when the chips are against them and they're injured and they have a bad record, um, just come back and keep fighting and keep playing and winning games. It says a lot about what that program right now, and I have a lot of respect for them. I have a lot of respect for them, and I think that once they get healthy next year, I think that they're going to do some really good things. I'm excited to see the future of Purdue football and what they're going to end up accomplishing in the next few seasons. But right now they're sitting at 3-6, and next week they're going to be playing Northwestern at Northwestern, so that should be a win for them. But then they have to play in Madison against the Badgers, and that won't be too easy. And then they have the in-state rivalry at the end of the season against Indiana, and Indiana's looking pretty dangerous right now. So I'm not sure about that. So they must win out in order to make a bowl game. But with the way the season has gone so far, I don't think anybody in the media or any of their fans are really expecting that to happen. It'd be insane if they did. It would be huge if they did, and it would say a lot about the players, the coaching, and the culture there. So we'll see how they end up finishing out the year. Both these teams are fighting for bowl games right now, and yeah, we'll see what happens with both of them at the end of the year. It should turn out to be very interesting. Next up on the list, we've got Rutgers at Illinois, and for this game, the Fighting Illini blew out Rutgers 38-10. Brandon Peters went only 6 for 11 for only 120 yards, one touchdown pass, no picks. Reggie Corbin was their leading rusher. He had 13 carries for 51 yards, averaging just under 4 yards a carry, no score. Denny Navarro was their leading receiver. He had 2 receptions for 57 yards, averaging 28.5 yards a catch, no score. And Josh Imaitabebe was just behind him with 3 receptions for 56 yards, averaging 18.7 yards a catch, and a touchdown. Illinois ran the ball for 204 yards, and they only had 324 total yards of offense. For Rutgers, Johnny Langen went 5 of 10 for 86 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He rushed for 41 yards as well. Aaron Young was their leading rusher, however. He had 13 carries for 67 yards, averaging 5.2 yards a carry, no score. And Muhammad Jabi was their leading receiver. He had 3 receptions for 64 yards, averaging 21.3 yards per catch, and a touchdown. Rutgers ran the ball for 185 yards. They had only 271 total yards of offense, and they turned the ball over 3 times. This game was actually pretty close in the first half. Illinois scored right away in the first quarter, and then they would tag on a field goal to make it 10-0, and that'd be the score at the end of the first. And then the second quarter was all Rutgers. They scored with a Muhammad Jabi touchdown catch to make it 10-7, and then they tacked on a field goal right before halftime to tie it up at 10, and that'd be the halftime score. In the third quarter, Illinois just blew the game open. They kept forcing turnovers and kept scoring on them. They scored 2 defensive touchdowns, one in the third quarter off a fumble, and one in the fourth quarter, a pick 6. But they ended up scoring 3 touchdowns in the third quarter and another one in the fourth, and basically they outscored Rutgers in the fourth quarter, 28-0. And so the final score of that game would be 38-10, and another good game by Illinois. I remember in last week's video, I was talking about Rutgers, and when they won, I was thinking, okay, could they use this to keep their heads up and go into a conference game and win? They could not, and it was pretty clear that they're just not really capable of doing that right now. I mean, they fought. They definitely fought in the first half, made it a game, But then Illinois obviously adjusted to what they were doing. Rutgers didn't make any adjustments, or they did and they just didn't work. And it was all Illinois from that point on. So a good win for them. They now move to 5-4 on the season, and they are fighting for a bowl game right now. They're one win away from it, and they have a winning record as well. Next week they're going to be playing Michigan State on the road, and then they have to play Iowa on the road, and then the last week of the season, in-state rivalry with Northwestern in Champaign. So that last game should be a win for them, and that'll give them 6 wins and a bowl appearance. I mean, they're on a roll right now. They've won 3 straight games. They showed a pretty decent performance against Michigan for the most part. And then, obviously, the big upset against Wisconsin. They blew out Purdue last week, and now they've blown out Rutgers. So we'll see what they can do against these last 3 teams. I know that they will win at least one of those games. So Illinois fans should be excited. They're probably most likely going to go to a bowl game, which is good for them. It's good for that program. It's really good for Lovie Smith because that will keep him his job. He was definitely on the hot seat this season, and it has really worked out for them during the second half of the season so far. For Rutgers, they fall to 2-7. They are still winless in Big Ten play, and I don't see them winning any games throughout the rest of the year. They have 3 tough games remaining. They have Ohio State, Michigan State, and Penn State. They're not going to win any of those games. Just because, the 2 of those teams are elite, and one of them is still, decently good, in my opinion. So, what can you do? I just don't see them. If you're getting blown out by Illinois and you haven't won a conference game yet, you're not going to beat any of those teams because those are the better teams in the conference. 2 of them are the best teams in the conference. So I just don't see them winning any more games during the year. It'll be interesting to see how they make a coaching change going into next year and to see how they respond next year with a new coach, new face for the program. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Good win for Illinois. They're looking really good right now. They're on a good path. And we'll see if they can make some noise finishing the season in the Big Ten. All right, for the 4th and last game on this list, we've got Northwestern at Indiana. And the Hoosiers blew out the Wildcats 34-3 in this game. And for Indiana, Michael Penix Jr. started this game. He went 10 of 15 for 162 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He rushed for a touchdown as well, and they were up big at halftime, so he rested for the second half. So Peyton Ramsey played the second half. He went 7 of 10 for 108 yards, a touchdown pass, no interceptions. Stevie Scott III was their leading rusher. He had 26 carries for 116 yards, averaging 4.5 yards a catch and averaging 4.5 yards a run and 2 touchdowns. He also had a touchdown catch as well. Watt Fillier was their leading receiver. He had 2 receptions for 76 yards, averaging 38 yards a catch and no score. Indiana ran the ball for only 144 yards, but they did have 414 total yards of offense. For Northwestern, Aiden Smith started the game at quarterback. He went 5 of 12 for only 47 yards, no score, no interception, and he got benched right before halftime. So Hunter Johnson played the rest of the game. He went 7 of 17 for 65 yards, no touchdown, no interceptions. And then Aiden Smith was actually their leading rusher. He had 6 carries for 34 yards, averaging 5.7 yards a catch, no score. Ramad Chiao Bowman was their leading receiver. He had 3 receptions for 43 yards, averaging 14.3 yards a catch, no score. And they ran the ball for only 87 yards, and they had only 199 total yards of offense, and they turned the ball over 3 times as well. So for Indiana, they're just looking fantastic right now. This is their best start since 1993. They are 7-2 right now, and it's just amazing what this program has been able to do in this 1-year turnaround. In year 3 of Tom Allen as head coach. I think that they're just doing really well this season. They haven't played anyone big. Yet, but the thing to look at is that they are winning games. We always knew they weren't going to beat any of these big teams like Ohio State and Penn State and stuff like that. But you know what? They're winning games, and they're 7-2 right now, and they're going to go to a bowl game. And so it's a good confidence season for that coaching staff and those players. No, they haven't played anyone that tough yet. Their biggest opponent has probably been Nebraska, but it's it's all about confidence and feeling good, and you want the players to feel good about how they're performing. And I mean, they're winning these good games. I mean, they're blowing out who they're playing. They blew out Northwestern, so they're looking pretty good in my opinion. And it'll be interesting to see how they finish out the year. Next week they're going to be playing Penn State, so we'll see what happens with that. Excuse me, that's in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks they're going to be playing Penn State because they're going to have a bye next week. Next week, Penn State plays Minnesota in what should be one of the biggest games of the Big Ten. And then they have to play Michigan after that. So this is kind of actually going to be a period where Indiana does get tested. We kind of figure out how good Indiana really is. Playing Penn State on the road is not going to be easy. I'm almost going to guarantee a loss for that. But you know what? Michigan, at home, you're playing in Bloomington against Michigan. We'll see what they can do with that. That could be like a surprise upset game. It should be interesting. And then they finish the season with Purdue, and we'll see what happens with that as well. But yeah, it's such a good year for that Hoosiers program, and it's amazing to see what they've done this year. So I'm very confident in the way that this team will perform throughout the rest of the season and what they're going to do in whatever bowl game they get selected in. One thing that they're doing that kind of confuses me a little bit is their quarterback situation. Last week against Nebraska, Peyton Ramsey started and played the entire game. And now in this game, Michael Penix Jr. started the game. I am not aware if Penix was hurt during the Nebraska game or not, or if they're just kind of doing this two-quarterback system where they switch off. If it is that case, if it is the latter, that could be something that could possibly hurt them, in my opinion. I'm not a big believer in the whole two-quarterback system, but at the same time, I don't know if they're running that or not. If Penix was just injured for the Huskers game, I'm not sure. So, I mean, he's a very talented player. Both of them are very good. Both of them played well. We'll see how they're going to play against these good defenses finishing out the year in Penn State and Michigan. So I especially think that Michigan game should be pretty interesting for them. But the Penn State game, I don't know how well Indiana's going to perform in that game, especially on the road in State College. So we'll see what happens with that. As far as Northwestern, it's just another tough loss in what has been a very, very down year for them. Next week they're going to be playing UMass. Next week they're going to be playing Purdue. And so that's going to be kind of a battle of the two of the bottom teams in the Big Ten. We'll see what happens. And then they play UMass after that, so that should be a confidence-type win for them. But then they have to play Minnesota, and that's not going to be easy. And then they finish the year with Illinois in the in-state rival for the state of Illinois. So they're not going to make any noise. They're not going to a bowl game because they already have 7 losses. So as far as I'm concerned, right now, all they have to play for is pride. And sometimes when you just simplify it down to that, some teams perform better because you're just playing for the pride of the school. You don't really have anything to worry about. You have nothing to lose, so they just tend to go out there, work hard, and have fun. And sometimes that puts a positive mark on a program in a way that a team with a struggling season finishes the season. Sometimes you have a positive end to that. So we'll see what happens with them. And yeah, that kind of does it for all the games we have this week. 6 of the 14 teams were on byes, so this was a somewhat shorter video than what we usually do. But then, like in all the other videos, I'm gonna put the teams into the subgroups. So, and we only made one switch for this week, and you guys will see what it is. The elite stays the same. It's Ohio State, Penn State, Minnesota. The contenders stay the same: Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana. Here's where the difference is. Between the middle of the pack and bottom of the conference, I moved Nebraska from the middle of the pack to the bottom of the conference because they are now 4-5. They have a losing record, and they are 2-4 in the Big Ten. They have only won a third of their Big Ten games. So the 2 middle of the pack teams, it's only 2 teams. It's Michigan State and Illinois. Michigan State is at 500. Illinois is above 500. And then the bottom of the conference, to me, if the bottom of the conference will consist of the teams with losing records. So it's Nebraska at 4-5, Purdue at 3-6, Maryland at 3-6, Rutgers at 2-7, and Northwestern at 1-7. All these teams have losing records in the Big Ten, and they all have losing records overall. So that's kind of where I put the groups for that. And that pretty much does it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I know there weren't a lot of games to go over in this video, but let me know what you think of the games. Let me know what you think of any of the teams, even the ones on buys. What do you think about the games coming up? What do you guys think about this Minnesota-Penn State game? Do you guys think that Minnesota is a legit elite team? Or do you think that they're pretenders right now because they haven't really played anyone and they might get exposed against Penn State? Honestly, I don't know. There are cases to make for both arguments, but I honestly have no idea. I would not be shocked if they won that game, but I would not be shocked if they lost it either. So we'll see what happens with that. Let me know what you guys think about any of the games coming up in later weeks. What do you guys think about Ohio State, Michigan right now? What do you think about Ohio State, Penn State right now? Next week we're going to have Wisconsin, Iowa. What do you think about that game? So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I really appreciate your comments and I read them all. Please give this video a like and please subscribe to our channel as well. Subscribe to our main SG1 Sports channel as well. I thank you all so much for watching this video. I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.